a blinding light at the end of my nightmare. "Eddie, it's bedtime," Mama would shout at me, shaking me out of my intense focus as I stared at the television set. She would add, "I don't know why I let you watch those shows. You only end up peeing in your bed because of your nightmares." Feeling embarrassed in front of my older sister, I would respond in self-defense. "You would get the heebie-jeebies from Alfred Hitchcock, too. Mama, he is the master and hero of all that is dark and sinister." She would not have any of it from a 10-year-old. "Eddie, enough of your mouth. Get to bed." And that was the end of our discussion until tomorrow night. Reluctantly, I trudged upstairs to my bedroom. I had my normal ritual for going to bed. No, it was not brushing my teeth or washing my face. I would search every corner of my room, looking for suspicious evidence that creatures were patiently hiding for their next meal. Me. Once I canvassed every nook and cranny, I would slither under my covers, imagining that it represented a force field from all supernatural beings and beasts. Feeling some assurance that I was safe, I would drift off to a light sleep. A scraping branch against the house, a creaking pipe, a howling wind, or murmuring voices would be enough to rustle me out of my delicate slumber. I would wake with a start and repeat my ritual. Then, for the rest of the night, fall in and out of sleep. I figured a gruesome beast must have taunted me, because, unfortunately, it was very damp between my sheets when I awoke in the morning. Like any other morning, my sister would offer up her compliments. "You look like hell. Eddie, did you wake up in the jaws of a monster this morning? Did you have to swim out of your bed?" I turned to her with a sardonic grin, saying, "Be careful, or my swamp monster might swim in your bed some night." She looked at me with disgust, saying, "Eddie, you are so revolting." My breakfast then proceeded without interruption. However, this morning would be different. After my sister left for school, my parents decided to have a heart-to-heart talk about my viewing and sleeping habits. They had planned this out well, because no counter-argument I mustered up would change their plans about my immediate future. I understand parents want the best for their children, but I felt they were overstepping their bounds by compelling me to see a psychiatrist about my problem, my incontinence problem. At least, that was what I thought it would be about. The ruse to see a psychiatrist was not for incontinence, but for treatment of my obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, and insomnia. Apparently, my parents were keenly aware of my behavior at night. I was not aware the behaviors manifested themselves during daytime at school. My teachers were decidedly concerned, requesting my parents to intervene. and find treatment for my disorders. My psychiatrist was empathetic to my interests and actually encouraged me to continue in my pursuit of thriller, scary, shock movies, games, and activities. He was so impressed that I could nearly remember all of my dreams, especially the nightmares. Nonetheless, he prescribed some medication to help tone down the OCD tendencies. His counseling therapy helped me to focus on self-control and restraint of successive, redundant behaviors. Some medicinal assistance also helped with the quality of my sleep and significantly reduced the incidence of my incontinence and snarky comments from my sister in the mornings. As the years passed, I was better. I felt rejuvenated. I was able to manage my thoughts and actions even when I immersed myself in my hobby of collecting horror movies, stories, and the like. My dreaming remained vivid. Occasionally, I would wake during the night in a cold sweat. No night terrors. No hysterical yelping at night. Some of my dreams I would not remember the next day. Nonetheless, there were a few dreams over the years that plagued me. Most were insanely comically, like an elephant falling out a skyscraper window, landing directly on top of me. Another version had an upright piano doing the same thing. Still other crazy times had killer cows or piranha fish walking on land stalking humans. Nightmares with zombies, ghosts, or ghouls did not upset me. What was extremely disturbing to me was not knowing the source of the terror or evil. One such time, the gruesome source was found in a howling wind, which would transform itself into an array of terrifying beings, creatures, and nondescript things like a smothering ooze. I questioned why this malady of nightmares still plagued me. It was after such reflection on my condition, I decided to make good use of this nocturnal problem. I focused my career on writing horror stories, potential movies, frightening, dramatic plays. I became so good at my skills, I had the audacity to self-publish several stories. To my amazement, a producer in Hollywood got a hold of one of my published stories. Before I realized it, I had a smash horror hit on the big screen and a job creating, writing, and directing all kinds of media horror. I had made it to the big time. Blinding lights flashed all around me as cameras captured my profile at my film premieres. My fiendish ideas were making a huge success and making me rich. I was still actively struggling with my insomnia despite my success. A deep sleep was rare for me. I shrugged it off as a consequence of the pressures of Hollywood and being recently married to a harlot of a wife. I shared with my therapist about how gruesome and sinister my nightmares had become. Yet, I justified those nightmares by citing how they were good fodder for my films and future ventures. I remained undaunted as I counted my gold. My career was literally driving me mad with ghoulish creativity. After all, they were just dreams. Maybe bad ones, but just dreams. They would remain in an ethereal state of mind until I gave them life. Already, the holidays were knocking at the door. In Hollywood, one determines the seasons by the storefront displays on Rodeo Drive and Melrose Avenue. Christmas was a mere month away. I was hoping this year the holidays would provide a peaceful respite from the hustle and bustle of shopping, my dreams, and all else. I was looking forward to the splendor of the season, bringing me some peace and much-needed rest from my constant night terrors. A few friends tried to coax me to attend church services to aid in my recovery. I declined. Churchy stuff was just not on my agenda this or any holiday season. With the house decked out in a few feeble decorations and no annoying carolers singing at my door, I decided to cozy up in my recliner for a peaceful nap, or so I thought. All of the pressure of my job and the haunting dreams had taken its toll on my body. I fell asleep instantly. I am not sure how much time had passed, but I awoke to a strong smell of sulfur, followed with a blast of very hot air. I felt something was wrong as I rose from my recliner. At first, I thought it might be a fire, but my immediate surroundings were strangely altered. Any light in the room quickly faded. It was nearly pitch black. A pinpoint of light emerged from a distance. It grew larger as it advanced toward me. Strangely, the light spoke to me. From the day you entered this world, and now to your grave, your soul has been marked for me. This is the beginning of eternity for you. You are now my child of the darkness. You are now a prisoner in my realm of depravity, defeat, and despair. Your soul is a good fit because of your perverted thoughts and sinister desires of your corrupted heart. I was stunned. I stammered out a question at the light. Who are you? And why are you visiting me? I heard clattering noises and voices in the background. The light said, I have several names. I am known as the Day Star, the Morning Star, Lucifer. In a bellowing, prideful voice, it said, I am the accuser. Instantaneously, a terrifying dragon appeared, hissing fire and sulfurous acid as it spoke these words. I am Satan, the deceiver and devourer of the whole universe. I was incredulous and could not speak. The dragon continued on. I am here because it has been your desire to delve deeper into all things purely evil and wicked. Ever since you were a child, you set your things on devilish, depraved images. I filled your mind with them, but you were never satisfied, always wanting more and more to fill up your lustful yearning for the macabre. You became successful at using my craft of malevolence in this world. Now it is time for you to repay me for all that I have given you. I frantically looked for a way out. There was none. With a trembling voice, I said, I never asked for this. Since I was a child, my nights have been filled with extreme anxiety and insomnia. You made my life a living hell. Satan quickly responded, My boy, my foolish boy, that is exactly the point. Your fascination with wickedness and death have preoccupied your mind through your entire pitiful life. I just gave you what you wanted. A living hell. You devalue human life with wretchedness and contempt by the monstrosities you have created. That is what your heart desires. Satan chuckled through his explanation. He showed me a vision of human faces etched in despair. I heard voices crying out in blood-curdling wailing. There was incessant gnashing of teeth. Flames engulfed the disembodied faces. Roaring conflagrations of intense fire and heat spewed from the vision, causing me to fall back. I was mortified and overcome with great fear. Satan spoke again with confidence. You are trapped by your earthly desires. There is no way out. My final gift is for you to capture the misery, hopelessness, and utter terror of hell in your next earthly venture. After that, your soul belongs to me in the everlasting fires of hell. In protest, I declared, Oh my God in heaven, no way on God's green earth do I plan to spend eternity with you, you ghastly vermin of mankind. At the mention of God, Satan cringed. He vehemently argued, I took care of him 2,000 years ago. I made sure he was dead, this self-proclaimed prophet, called the Christ, who called himself God. He healed pathetic people, but he could not save himself from a cross of death. I won, and now I am the victor of everything. My realm is full of the shadowy souls of despicable and evil men and women, believers and non-believers of this so-called God. I saw in that moment Satan trembling and doubting his words. That lapse gave me a moment to remember something from my childhood and the Christmases I had with my family. My mama would recount the birth of Jesus, the Christ in Bethlehem. She reminded me of my baptism of water into the community of believers in Christ. I remembered the peace and joy I received. That was a time when I had no nightmares, no night terrors. These memories made me feel stronger. In my boldness, being filled with the Spirit, I proclaimed to Satan, regardless of my sordid past and sinful actions, you, Satan, have no claim on my soul. Your lies and indictments are not binding, because Jesus, the Christ, came to your insidious place to proclaim his victory over you. Where, O death, is your victory? O death, where is your sting? Satan cowered at my words. I continued with amazing fortitude. I believe in God the Father, maker of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus, the Christ who suffered, died, and rose again for my sins. You, Satan, are a liar, and the truth is not in you. You are damned, but I am not, because the Christ has forgiven me of my iniquities and wretchedness. The Christ is my way out of this nightmare. Begone, Satan, in the name of Jesus. A thunderous rage poured out like earthquakes, volcanoes, and raging storms, simultaneously erupting from the evil one. Instantly, Satan departed, and this frightening nightmare ended. In his wake, a blinding light emerged. I peered at the light. I saw a star hovering above a man and woman, gathered at a crib of straw. In that crib, I saw a baby wrapped in cloth, and the space around me was illuminated with an incredible light. A great peace descended upon me, releasing me of my terrorizing night afflictions. May your dreams be filled with joy and peace of the baby whose dream became reality to save man from himself. There were shepherds living out in the fields nearby. It was night, and they were taking care of their sheep. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them. They were terrified, but the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news. It will bring great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. Here is how you will know I am telling you the truth. You will find a baby wrapped in strips of cloth and lying in a manger." Suddenly, a large group of angels from heaven also appeared. They were praising God. They said, "May glory be given to God in the highest heaven, and may peace be given to those he is pleased with on earth." The night the engines died. The passengers of Flight 227 had just completed their meal. The cabin buzzed quietly with the clinking of silverware, an intermittent laugh, and the faint sound of rustling newspapers. Ordinary, routine sounds that masked behind the fragile facade of safety the horror that loomed just beyond. A stewardess laughed at a joke told by a passenger. A man in first class swirled his wine, enjoying the final sip. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life, its static sibilant as a snake wrapping its way around the unwitting passengers. Then the voice, calm, deliberate, but with an unnatural solemnity, as if the captain was reading his own obituary. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking." A moment of silence, just enough time for apprehension to germinate. "I need to inform you of an issue." The words hung in the air, like an executioner's blade, poised to drop. The atmosphere changed instantly, as though an unseen presence had blown a chilly breath over the cabin, permeating every crack and crevice, wrapping around each traveler like invisible fingers clenching into a fist. Talk stalled, laughter died, to be succeeded by tense silence, as though the whole aircraft had sucked in its communal breath. The pilot went on, his voice strained with shame, but shaking under the burden of the nightmare he had created. In my hurry to leave Charles de Gaulle Airport, I failed to adequately monitor our fuel levels. A long, ragged pause ripped through the intercom, as though he was fighting to get out the words. I am ashamed to say this. I know I have let you all down. A hollow, uncomfortable silence fell over the cabin, choking the air like an invisible hand squeezing against each chest. The pilot paused to catch his breath before continuing, his voice cracking under the strain. Since we have been flying for a long time, our destination could be beyond our reach, since we may lack sufficient fuel to get there. The finality of his confession hit the passengers like a physical blow, drawing the air out of the cabin as though the aircraft itself had inhaled a gasp of horror. Some cried out loud. Others were paralyzed, their hands clenching armrests so hard that their knuckles whitened, as though through sheer force of will they could halt the unstoppable. A man grasped at his chest, his breathing shallow and fast, the first spasms of fear gripping his heart. The aircraft, once a sanctuary of order and technology, was now a prison of uncertainty. A metal coffin cutting through the emptiness at 500 miles an hour. Every flashing light, every jolt of turbulence seemed to foretell disaster. The whispers of fear were growing louder, building into a jarring buzz of terror. There were no strangers then, just the doomed, held together by the unspoken grasp of fear as they spoored toward some unknown destiny. And then another violent and convulsive shudder that ripped through the aircraft as if it had been seized in a death grip by an invisible hand. One of the engines coughed, sputtered, and died. The whole plane shuddered as if it had been hit by an invisible blow, a jolting crash of bone that threw passengers from their seats and sent loose objects flying through the cabin. The sickening lurch sent drinks crashing, trays falling to the floor, and overhead lockers bursting open, their contents spilling into the aisle. Gasps turned to screams as the cabin tilted, the aircraft going into an unnatural descent. The aircraft had already started to descend to New York, but now it was plummeting, no longer descending in a controlled manner, but spiraling out of control. The cabin lights flickered madly, casting crazed shadows on faces paralyzed with terror. The aircraft lurched violently, its damaged fuselage objecting to the stress. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling like ghostly apparitions, Dangling inertly amidst the chaos, the cabin erupted into pandemonium. Screams of abject terror, cries for assistance, the raspy howls of those who recognized the inevitable. The night sky outside, once an endless expanse of stillness and silence, now pressed in like the walls of a closing tomb. The vastness had turned suffocating, a cosmic void ready to consume them. Below, the earth was no longer a distant haze, but a giant, looming thing, reaching out to snatch them with an appetite that threatened to consume them. City lights unfurled like streaks of flame, oblivious to the souls above, speeding towards their fate. The altimeter ticked down at a remorseless pace. The aircraft was still too far from New York City. Its decreasing altitude, a grim countdown, without reprieve. There were no longer any alternative airports, no deviations, just the relentless descent, and the understanding that hope was running through their fingers like sand in a gale. The cockpit was a maelstrom of confusion. Alarms screaming, warning lights flashing like a dying pulse. The aircraft strained against gravity, shuddering so violently the control panels creaked. The first officer's white-knuckled fists held tight to the yoke, his forehead beaded with sweat. His voice, strained and almost lost in the din of automated warnings, sliced through the chaos. The second engine coughed, sputtered, and with a final agonizing splutter, died in silence. A jolting stillness filled the cockpit, broken only by the otherworldly shriek of wind whistling past the fuselage. It was the kind of stillness that felt unnatural, deafening in its absence of power. A stillness that presaged catastrophe. The aircraft, a marvel of controlled engineering, was now reduced to a huge metal husk, a crippled glider flying through the darkness. The control panels blacked out, their frantic warnings muted, as if even the plane itself had given up. The first officer's breath caught, his fists still gripped on the dead yoke, as if sheer willpower could urge power back into the engines. His eyes bulged wide, darting to the altimeter, its numbers free-falling with heart-stopping speed. The first officer's knuckles turned white on the throttle. We're dead stick. No thrust. The captain's mind reeled. We can glide this in. His voice, which he tried to keep steady, trembled. He was not sure. It seemed to take forever for the Ram air turbine to deploy. Its little turbine opening up into the howling wind like a desperate, last gasp prayer to the emptiness. Inside the cabin, the flight attendants strode down the aisles with stiff formality, their faces drawn but determined, their voices, strained as they were, carried the authority of rehearsed command. "Brace for impact, please," one of them screamed, her voice hardly cutting through the noise. A few passengers complied at once, throwing themselves forward, arms clasped around their heads. Others were paralyzed, their brains locked in denial, unable to comprehend the unimaginable. One man struggled with his seatbelt, shaking so hard he couldn't locate the buckle. A woman clutched the armrest so hard her fingernails cracked on the plastic. The emergency lights strobed feebly, casting eerie shadows that twitched on faces contorted in terror. People shrieked, a loud, grating cacophony of terror. Some embraced their loved ones. Others slapped hands over their faces, screams muffled by the deafening quiet of the plummeting plane. A flight attendant, holding onto the back of a seat for balance, mouthed frantic reassurances no one heard. The aircraft vibrated heavily, the fuselage complaining in protest to the strain of its powerless plummeting. Unsecured items flew around the cabin, bouncing off chairs and people. Each passing second seemed impossibly long, as if the fabric of time itself had rent asunder under the threat of disaster. The captain gritted his teeth, his hands trembling over the controls. The glide of the plane was erratic, its path a hardly controlled plunge into the emptiness. The cockpit echoed with alarms, relentless, screaming their warnings in a cruel mockery of hope. Smoke from the failing systems wreathed through the dim light, the acrid scent of burning circuits searing his lungs. And then, out of the spinning darkness, out of the turmoil, he saw it, a faint, glimmering glow in the distance, cutting through the blackness like a sliver of salvation. New York City, runway lights, a fragile lifeline quivering in the fog, teasingly distant. But could they reach it? Or was it an illusion, a mirage in the final few seconds before extinction? The first officer's breath caught, his heart racing in his throat, as his eyes locked onto the gleaming light ahead. We might make it, after all, he whispered, his voice trembling with a faint, desperate hope, as though saying the words aloud could make it so. But beneath his words was the unspoken fear, the knowledge that they were still at the mercy of gravity, the wind, and fate itself. But they hadn't reached there yet. The trees rose like shattered black shapes, their gnarled branches reaching out greedily toward the plane, as if to pull it down into nothingness. He had seconds. His grasp of the yoke was vice-like, his knuckles white under the faint glow of the flickering gauges. The plane bucked in an irregular motion that was wild, turbulence and gravity resisting every movement. His heart throbbed in his head, but his mind was fixed in steel-sharp concentration. The first officer took a deep breath. Hold it just a little longer. The branches on top of the trees were closing in. The runway lights continued to flicker ahead, teasingly near. impossibly distant. They were on the brink of salvation or doom. One last risk, one last wild maneuver. With a violent tug on the controls, he went for the gap. The tops of the trees scraped the underside of the plane, ripping at the undercarriage. The sound of metal on wood screamed through the cabin, and then a deafening, bone-crushing bang. A merciless cacophony of screaming metal and bursting steel, as if the heavens themselves had fallen. The force of impact vibrated through the fuselage, seats ripped from their mounts, bodies tossed around like dolls, flames licked along the broken edges of the aircraft, illuminating the darkness in an otherworldly, flickering glow. A choking cloud of smoke rolled through the wreckage, its acrid grip tightening around every strangling breath of air. The ground trembled with aftershocks, debris still creaking and groaning in the burning wreckage. Then, silence. A fragile, unnatural silence, shattered only by the crackles of fire and the rough, strained breathing of those who remained alive. There were cries from the rubble, some in the distance, some close, bare with pain and shock. The reek of smoldering petrol clung to the air, a bitter reminder of how close they had come to complete destruction. And when the smoke finally cleared, the twisted remains of the plane lay stretched out like a broken, tortured thing, its bare skeleton scarcely discernible as the great ship that it once was. And yet, despite all the odds, everyone was alive, poised between the salvation and oblivion, balanced on the brink of an impossible second chance. The captain, bruised and inexplicably alive, gaped as he released his harness, his sweat-soaked fingers shaking with aftershock. His ribs throbbed with searing pain, every breath a burning reminder of the savagery they'd just survived. He hauled himself up, vision fading, the metallic flavor of blood in his mouth. The debris lay before him like the scene of a nightmare. Flames licking across scorched metal. The bitter taste of fuel and smoke choking the air. Remote, tortured screams resounded in his mind, together with the ringing that had not stopped since impact. His head reeled, replaying every mistake, every warning he had ignored. The sign of his failure weighed upon him, more oppressive than the wreckage that enclosed him. He had made a mistake that should have killed everyone. Little Men, January 1985. Somewhere over the... You were 1,000 miles into the Atlantic when the aircraft rutted violently against your controls. Barely a shiver in the airframe at first, like a deep sigh running through the metal bones of the 777, then unloading at once. You felt it beneath your hands, fingers curled around the yoke, a pulse of tension radiating from your own chest. And you thought that perhaps The bottom of the ocean was where you belonged. There was a darkness there, a pressure so strong it would stop your body from behaving like a biological machine and turn it into a mangled physics experiment. The same coexisted inside you, where your heart was splintered, half of it belonging to your mother and half of it to Cammy. A darkness you couldn't smooth away. Somewhere back there, among the rows of passengers dozing, sighing, and flipping through their lives, he was sitting. Your father, a man you'd never truly seen. Not beyond the stories your mother whispered in moments of quiet fury. A man who had given you nothing but a sickness that curled in your gut when you remembered where you came from. The man whose rage marked you. You didn't know his seat number, didn't want to know. The knowledge that he existed in your cabin, breathing your air, was enough to make a grown man sick. And you thought you knew that if he walked up to the cockpit door, if he knocked, if he leaned in with some pathetic excuse or a father's smirk, you would open the door and wrap your hands around his throat. You'd feel his pulse flutter against your fingers, fragile and real, and you would squeeze. You let autopilot hold the course, let the gentle hum of the engines seep into your bones, pretending for a moment you were something better than what he left behind. A clean slate, but there was always a stain, that borrowed darkness, his gift to you. No matter how high you flew, you couldn't outrun it. And then she drifted into your mind, the girl with eyes like sky break, a voice like gentle rain, the girl you had never touched, could never touch, because she was flawless in ways you would never be. She'd smile at you with that easy grace, unaware of the shadows clawing inside you, oblivious to the storm you kept locked behind your ribs. You thought of her seeing you for what you were, the quiet, steady pilot with a monster curled around his heart. If she knew, if she saw even a hint of that darkness, she would recoil. She'd wish you out of the sky, wish your plane would disappear into the ocean without a trace. And maybe she'd be right. The horizon stretched before you, a line you couldn't cross, a future you didn't deserve. You swallowed the air in shallow breaths, felt the press of your father's existence. Outside, the clouds thickened, gray swirling into black, and the gentle tremor of turbulence returned. The seatbelt sign blinked on. You flicked the intercom switch, cleared your throat. Ladies and gentlemen, we're passing through some rough air. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Your father's life was in your hands. All their lives were. You looked at the yoke, the screens, the clouds ahead, and wondered just how far you could fall before the darkness took over. Why was he still alive? How did he deserve to be alive? On what grounds exactly? You could push the controls forward, put the nose into a dive, select full thrust, increase bank angle to 45 degrees, and stall the plane. Keep putting in fatal commands while your FO tries to right the plane until the dual input sound warning starts to ring out through the cockpit. You squeezed your eyes shut just for a moment. The stick trembled beneath your fingers, the aircraft groaning. You loved this plane, and like in any other reciprocal relationship, it not only loved you back, but supported your every decision. You could do it. A simple motion, a nudge of the yoke, the push of a throttle, and gravity would take over. You opened your eyes. Outside, the storm coiled tighter, wind shear slipping along the fuselage. The intercom crackled as your first officer, blissfully unaware of the war inside you, mumbled something about altitude adjustments. You barely heard him. A breath, another. Then the master caution blared. A harsh, shrieking thing. Your FO jerked upright. Jesus, what? Your hands moved. Instincts taking over before your mind could finish what it started. The turbulence sharpened. Wind punched the aircraft broadside. The nose dipped. Pitch up, pitch up. You corrected without thinking. Muscle memory overriding the dark pull at the edge of your mind. The aircraft stabilized, shuddering in the air, and for a moment, all was still. Your FO exhaled, dragging a hand down his face. That was a bad one. You okay? You nodded, throat dry. Yeah, you said, because it wasn't your hands that tried to kill them. It was the storm, at least. That was the lie you would tell yourself. Something in you had hesitated, had listened to the alarms, had heard the raw panic in your FO's voice, had responded like the pilot they had trained you to be. Why had you stopped? Captain, you forced your expression into something normal, professional. The storm was beginning to ease, the worst of it passing. We'll be clear in a few minutes, you said. Keep an eye on the readings. He nodded, rubbing his temples. Didn't think we'd get rocked that hard. Thought for a second we were gonna. He shook his head. Never mind. You didn't respond. Instead, you reached for the intercom. Your voice was calm, steady. Everything it should be. Ladies and gentlemen, the turbulence is subsiding. We'll have a smooth ride the rest of the way. Thank you for your patience. You let go of the button. The lie sat heavy in your mouth because the storm wasn't over. It had only just begun. Late for rest. This story centers around death. I'm late, she thought, as she ran for the bus. Her friends would say that was her life's motto. Amelia scrambled on the bus, trying not to jostle anyone. She had been given a final warning about not getting to work on time and knew her boss was serious. She was good at her job, but this city had over 2 million people. She could be replaced. In fact, She was one of many autopsy technicians who were employed at her job. She enjoyed working with her colleagues and liked working under her supervisor. The problem was, on top of being a natural procrastinator, she was in school full-time while working full-time. But this was her last semester. Her goal was to become an ME. She had always been interested in true crime as a kid and spent her free time watching the ID channel. Her first interest was in forensic science because she wanted to investigate crime scenes. But death and dead bodies never bothered her. And she started working in the morgue as an undergrad, which spurred her interest in forensic pathology. It was then that she learned she was gifted in reading corpses. All those years of hearing about petechiae, cyanosis, and lividity became useful. She could read bodies like a book. That, combined with her proclivity for stockpiling information about diseases and murder, made her a veritable glossary of forensic pathology. Amelia was well liked at work because she was knowledgeable and friendly. Plus, she had a great work ethic while at work. It was outside of work that she struggled with procrastination. She just struggled to stay focused. If she had an assignment to do that required research, she'd end up going down rabbit holes on a side topic that caught her eye. She would know it's time to stop. But if a deadline wasn't impending, she knew she could get away with pushing something off in favor of exploring her current interest. This habit is what created such a wealth of knowledge for her. Unfortunately, it also made her have to do everything last minute or even late. Since becoming an adult and responsible for her own finances, she has never filed her taxes on time. 2 years in a row, she forgot altogether. To compensate, Amelia didn't get much sleep and often slept through her alarms. It was probably her body and brain's way to ensure she got enough sleep. Her boss didn't care how good of a worker she was if she continuously showed up late. She understood that, yet she still struggled to alter her habits. On top of that, she couldn't stay late because of her grad research. She had a thesis to finish and defend. Amelia lived in a state of guilt and shame over not being better at time management, but figured she'd have time to learn how to get better at it later. Today, it was important to not be late. There was still a possibility of making it on time. She missed her first bus, but ran full speed 6 blocks to catch a different one. She had a chance to rest before her stop, and then she'd have to sprint again for the light rail. It was a tight plan, requiring more physical exertion than she was used to, especially outside in Houston in the summer. But it was better to turn up drenched in sweat than late. For once, Amelia made it to work on time, and surprisingly, she wasn't sweating or even tired. Smiling to herself, she walked into the lab, expecting a few comments razzing her for unusual timeliness. However, everyone looked stern. This wasn't unusual in a morgue where many unfortunate events cause bodies to end up here. It was especially hard when it was a child or a victim of a violent assault. Or worse, a child who was a victim of a violent assault. Occasionally, a friend or relative of one of her colleagues came through. Everyone was very professional, but an underlying awkwardness was always present. Amelia approached the body they were centered around. She looked down at herself. Shock doesn't begin to describe what she felt. Confusion, of course, was also a dominant reaction. Was this a prank? The level of cruelty involved in doing something like this as a prank was beyond her comprehension. "What the fuck?" she yelled. For once, she was not late. And this is how they treat her. No one turned to look at her or even responded. "How the fuck did you do this?" Doubt started to flood in. She grew up in the foster system. Did she have a sister she didn't know about? Did she have a twin? "Who is this?" she yelled as her frustration and fear grew. Still, no one met her eye or replied. "When did she arrive?" her colleague Nate asked. "Half an hour ago," Mike, her supervisor, replied. For once, she was early. "What the actual fuck, guys? You are going too far," she screamed. She liked these people. How could they be so cruel? Was this supposed to be some kind of lesson for her extreme tardiness? Like an extreme example of what could happen if she continued living her life, always running late. Ironically, I believe she was hit by a bus while she was running for a different one, Mike suggested. "Wow, death by bus," Angela quipped. "This is sick. It's not funny." "Who is this?" she cried. Mike stepped back right into her. Literally into her. It was slowly dawning on Amelia that this wasn't a prank. She looked down at the corpse that was obviously hers. She was dead. She was hit by a bus. It was unfathomable, but she still had a lot to do. "I don't think there is a need for an autopsy," Mike announced. Slowly, everyone turned away, and Amelia took the chance to step closer to her body. "Wait!" she exclaimed. No one listened. Amelia remembered her last moments. She had gotten in an argument with a man near the bus stop. His attempt at catcalling was graphic and disturbing, and she told him, "Shut the fuck up, creep." He retorted with a comment suggesting she needed to be raped. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Amelia demanded. "You're an uptight bitch who needs a good dicking down whether you want one or not," he replied. "I don't have time for this," she mumbled to herself while looking around for help. She saw a cop car across the street and started to head that way. She had to pause because a bus was rapidly approaching her stop. The last thing she remembers is being pushed. "This was not an accident," she yelled at her colleagues. Desperation set in as she realized this would be recorded as an accident instead of the murder it was. Legally, It was probably manslaughter. But when you're the one killed, you feel murdered, not manslaughtered. Her colleagues continued to go about their business as Mike filled out the paperwork. "Please, look again, Mike," she said as she peered over his shoulder. She watched him type the details, or her death, which she found the most surreal event of the day. "Please," she whispered again, before going to look at her body for evidence that she had been pushed. She needed someone to turn herself over. She even reached out herself. But in her non-corporeal state, there was nothing she could do. She cried tearlessly as she lost hope. "I feel we should do something more for Amelia," Angela said. "Like plan her funeral?" Mike suggested. She had no family. "I was thinking more along the lines of an autopsy," she offered. "Amelia would have wanted one." It's true. Even if she hadn't suspected an attack, she still would want an autopsy. She had already planned for her body to be donated to the body farm when she died. She had lived a life of science and wanted to continue in death. "You're right," Mike said. Before getting up, he changed the paperwork to justify an autopsy. Amelia waited as patiently as she could until it happened. Her body was finally rolled over, and there were marks indicating that she wasn't just pushed, but punched in the back with 2 fists. "Holy shit," Angela remarked. Stunned, the whole team began discussing possibilities as Amelia felt herself being pulled away. "No, I don't want to go," she cried. This would be the final rabbit hole she'd ever go down, and the most important one to her. She fought against this invisible force, tugging her away, because her interest was piqued. She had to know that they solved this crime. The cops needed to know to look at security cameras so they could find this guy. She physically felt like she was in a game of tug of war, with her soul being the middle of the rope. Finally, one last tug pulled her away. There's at least one place she could not be late for: the Sea Witch. Clouds of ink and iron pressed against a leaden ocean. He found her waist deep in the salty waters, fingers trailing in swirling sea foam, gaze cast to the storm promised heavy on the horizon. Winds tasting of seaweed and salt brine danced in her hair, tangling through long obsidian strands and tossing them into thickening air. From the dunes, he called to her. "Fair one," his hail drifted, swallowed by crashing surf. "I seek the Sea Witch." Only winds stirred in answer. Slowly, her head turned ever slightly to gaze over her shoulder. From great distance, and obscured beneath wild strands of hair, her dark eyes locked to his with piercing intensity that struck his core like lightning. With a hum that rippled across the waves, she spoke. A harrowing voice of 1,000 voices burrowed deep in his mind with a cold whisper of soft honey. Is this what they call me these days? Her lips curled, not to a smile, but something knowing, something old. I've heard tales of your great power, he cried, stepping closer to the waves. Please, I seek your help. She laughed darkly from the water. Great power. She tasted the words, rolling them over her tongue like foam dissolving on the shore. Thunder rumbled on the horizon. In an instant, she was before him, her face inches from his. She floated above a boiling sea, robes billowing over tumultuous waves that crashed to the shore with surging hunger. Energy crackled in the air, charged with a deep pulse that rivaled the burning winds. Her hair spiraled in silken waves before her, caressing his face, and her eyes, deep and endless, burned with intensity that could sink the largest of ships. And did they call it great? She whispered, her voice of 1,000 voices quaking earth and thrumming his bones. When they led me to the pyre, the wind howled, tearing at his clothes, the salt stinging his eyes. Did they call it great? She continued with increasing intensity. When they bound my wrists, when they fed me to the flames, he cowered before her as the sea swelled with hunger. I surely think not. She rose higher, straightening her form, bare feet brushing against churning waves. And yet, still, here they slither to me, mewling for party tricks. She looked down upon him with her chin raised. Tell me then, boy, she spat, laced with mockery. What is it that you seek? Gold? Fame? Power, perhaps? She tilted her head. A place among kings? She laughed, and sea spray pelted his skin. With a forearm, he shielded his face and cried, Please, I know not of your past, wise one. The winds raged around him. I seek a cure. My love is plagued with an illness that no medicine or healer can rid. I cannot bear to live without her. The winds slowed, the waters calmed, and slowly the sea witch descended. Her feet sunk in swirling sands beneath the surface, her dark hair to her sides. She eyed him thoughtfully, weighing his words. Cannot live without her, she echoed. Just one voice falling from her lips, in stark contrast to the thousands before. Quiet waves lapped around her calves. And this woman, she is your great love? He ignored hairs pricking on his neck as her gaze bore into him. She is everything to me. She studied him, robes billowing in soft winds. Yes, she said quietly. This I will do. Oh, thank you, he cried, falling to his knees in the water before her. She narrowed her eyes, looking down upon him. But there is always a price. Oh, yes, of course, he stammered, scrambling in his pockets. I have money. Her voice of 1,000 voices cracked like thunder. I do not deal in coins, foolish boy. The waves stirred hungrily around her feet before calming. Then, just one voice, brimming with disdain. Your debt lies with the universe. He stood up, trembling. He lifted his head to meet her fearsome gaze. For her, I will pay any price. Her lips twisted to a smile, sharp as glass. Such conviction, she murmured, almost to herself. How valiant. The softest chuckle emanated from her, like thunder rumbling on the horizon. She stepped forward, running a cold finger down his cheek. Very well then, the deal is struck. Her eyes flicked to his. A life for a life. His breath caught in his throat. With one swift movement, her hand shot to grip the back of his neck, fingers digging into his flesh as she pulled him close. The water swelled around them, ravenous and eager. She laughed, pulling him under and out to sea as he sank deeper, deeper. He thought only of his love. He thought of her laughter, bright and warm, ringing across wildflower meadows around their cottage. He thought of her smile, crooked and beautiful, and the soft hole it hitched in his chest each time she bore it. He thought of the night he fell for her, watching her dance, weaving and spinning between other party-goers beneath the hanging wisteria. She'd smiled at him, waving to come join her. He'd held up his hands, sticking to the edges. He wasn't much for dancing. If he could go back, if he could only go back, he'd join her in a heartbeat. Later, that same night, she'd led him under moonlight, dragging him by the hand through the wood to her favorite place. Come on, she'd whispered, her laughter echoing in the night. I have to show you something. She brought him to a hidden gazebo on the lily pond, where she'd kissed him, stolen and bold. The sea kissed him now, stealing air from his lungs as she had. He thrashed against its unwelcome embrace as it ran icy fingers deep into his chest. He thought of her illness, how quickly she'd waned. The doctor's cold looks of detachment that made his blood boil. How they'd came and went, pricking her and bleeding her with leeches, giving all manner of vile treatments, until one day, one of them pulled him aside. She's too far gone for further treatment, he'd said solemnly. It would be best to sort affairs. His world had shattered then. Nothing mattered but her. In blind desperation for something, anything to keep her alive, he'd ignored the warnings that heeded the whispers and sought the spell weaver, the sea witch. As she pulled him into the depths, he could only hope that it was worth it. The road to nowhere. I yawned and rubbed the sleep away from my eyes. Looking around, the flickering lights of the train windows I had gotten so used to were gone, and all I could see were the dim white lights that lined the aisle of the train car. I glanced around at all the empty seats, confused. Why was I here? Why was the train empty? And why wasn't it moving? Confusion overtook me, followed by panic. I shot to my feet and strode to the end of the train car, trying the door at the very end, but it wouldn't budge. I quickened my steps to the other side, my shoes clanking on the metal floor, and tried the sliding door. This one opened like a dream. Excitedly, I stepped out of the train car onto the solid ground I knew would be there, and promptly fell. There was no ground. There was no sky. There was just nothingness. My heart dropped into my stomach as I lurched downward, and the only thing that saved me from plummeting into that nothingness was the open backpack on my back, caught on the armrest of one of the chairs still inside. My arms, having felt like they were wrenched from my shoulders, hung there loosely as the straps of my backpack held on to me for dear life. My breath caught in my throat, and my mind raced as I stared out at the blackness before me. How do I get up? I tried to turn to grab the floor of the train car, but a loud tearing of fabric caused me to pause, and my heart thundered in my ears. I waited, my arms refusing to move out of fear. But in one fell swoop, I launched my hands up behind me and hoisted myself back onto the floor of the train car, just as my backpack completely tore open. Panting heavily, back in the safety of the train car, I ripped my backpack off my shoulders and inspected the damage. The top was completely torn, but I didn't care. That stupid backpack saved my life. I threw it back on and stood up, staring out at the blackness before me, holding on to the armrest of a chair just for insurance. There was literally nothing. No one. The silence was so suffocating, I almost wished to hear my heart pounding in my ears again. "Hello?" I called as loud as I could into the void, but there wasn't even an echo, just silence. Suddenly, as if compelled by some outside force, the train car lurched forward. I nearly tumbled into the void again, the only thing that saved me being that armrest I was holding. "What was that? Who's doing that?" I called, but once again, no answer. The train car chugged along slowly, almost at a snail's pace, but I figured that was better than nothing. I closed the sliding door, sick of my inability to stay firmly in the train, and walked carefully to a seat, plopping down into it. What was I doing before I got on the train? I didn't remember. Who was I? I didn't remember. It felt like I'd been created from air and dropped onto this God-forsaken train, surrounded by this God-forsaken nothing. I took the poor, shredded backpack off my shoulders again and searched through it this time, but all I found were some loose leaf blank sheets of notebook paper. A student, maybe? If I was stupidly disorganized. I desperately tried to search my brain for any clues related to school. Maybe the name of a school I went to, the names of past teachers, the faces of fellow students and friends. I came up with nothing. No matter how much I tried to scour my memories, one unchangeable fact remained. I was stuck on a train car in the middle of the void, heading to nowhere. All I could do was wait, so that's what I did. I waited, and I waited, and waited. I kept myself occupied with my thoughts as I stared out the window, gazing into the darkness. I don't know how much time passed. I had nothing to gauge my bearings on. No watch, no ticking clock, nothing. The dim lights from the train ceiling flickered for a moment, and then went out with a quiet click. And at the same time, the train came to an abrupt halt. I looked away from the window and shot to my feet, wrenched away from my thoughts, and pressed myself against the train wall. I could barely see anything. The dim lights were the only light source in this never-ending blackness. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice broke in my nervousness. There was a small beep, like something about to be announced over an intercom. And all of a sudden, a digital message began scrolling across the top of the train wall in bright red digital letters. Suddenly, as if compelled by some outside force, the train car lurched forward. The train started moving again, abruptly, the force almost yanking me off my feet. And I steadied myself before looking back at the digital red letters. Who's doing this? Who is it? My frustration and stress exploded into my voice, and I stomped angrily away from the wall to stand in the center of the slow-moving train car, bathed by the weak red light of the letters. The digital message continued scrolling, and the letters would reveal a message that would make me rush towards the seats. The train started moving again abruptly, the force almost yanking me off my feet. I didn't catch the rest, desperate to get to a seat. The train did, in fact, start moving forward again. And it was only by the grace of God that I ended up grabbing the armrest of a seat to avoid flying to the floor. Angrily, I stormed to the end of the train and yanked open the sliding door, screaming into the void. "Are you messing with me? What are you trying to do? Why am I here?" I glanced back at the red letters on a whim and saw the following message. The silence was so suffocating, I almost wished to hear my heart pounding in my ears again. Nothing. Absolute silence. And the last thing I saw before tumbling out of the train and into the void were the small red letters forming the words, "There was no ground. There was no sky. Good luck." The silent car. Sarah slid through the closing subway doors, just in time, glancing through the windows at the platform, happy to be heading home. The soft chime alerted the passengers that the train was leaving her stop. She sunk into the closest seat, feeling the cold plastic chill her legs through her jeans, sighing as she rubbed at her tired eyes with her palms. It felt good to finally sit down after such a long day. Her body lurched gently as she was transported through the underground tunnel. She had a long ride, even with the trains running express after midnight, and all she wanted to do was sleep. Her usual routine involved reading books to stay awake on her commute home. But even holding her book felt like too much work tonight. The car was silent, but there were more people than she would have expected. There must have been some kind of event, because usually the only other people taking her subway this late at night were the kind that you had to worry about. But they looked like regular people, just a few stragglers making their way back home. Glancing around, she noticed the other passengers were seated quietly, probably just as tired as her. Their eyes were fixed blankly ahead on the seat in front of them, or watching the dark, steady blur of the tunnel pass by outside of the train windows. Sarah settled in for the long ride, slumping deeper into her seat. She opened her book, staring intently at the first paragraph. She willed the comprehension of the words to come to her, but the words just looked like symbols, refusing to form meaning in her brain. Sarah sighed, closing her book again. She glanced up, making eye contact with a middle-aged woman across the row. Automatically, she turned her gaze away, but something felt off. The woman was still looking at her, gripping a handbag on her lap. Sarah snuck another peek, wondering what this lady's problem was. Her eyes were open, but she was staring past Sarah, at the space where she sat, motionless. Feeling uneasy, Sarah leaned forward slightly. Are you okay?" Sarah called out gently. The woman looked like a statue, not blinking or moving, and urgency cut through Sarah's tiredness. No response. Sarah felt her cheeks get hot, as she tended to flush red when she was nervous. This was weird, in a bad way. She turned to the next person she could see, finding a college-aged young man beside her. He wore baggy jeans and had a big pair of earphones around his neck. His eyes were fixed forward with the same vacant stare. Her voice shook now. "Hello?" A cold sweat flashed across the top of her lip. She swiped at it as she stood abruptly. The book that had been in her lap tumbled to the floor. Panicked, she made her way to the next person. She checked passenger after passenger, professionally dressed men and women, younger-looking students or interns, even a woman with a little dog on her lap. Horrified, she found that the dog was frozen too. She started with polite taps and a low voice, and built up to violently shaking shoulders, pleading for someone to just say or do anything. She dreaded the same look on every face, present yet utterly absent. The lights were all on, but no one was home. The subway hit a turn, and Sarah was propelled sideways. She grabbed a rail, gripping the cool metal and using it to help her keep her balance as she rushed to the end of the car. She shot a hand out for the door handle that connected her car to the next one. Her stomach dropped as the handle refused to budge. Locked. She pounded on the glass, but the next car appeared equally motionless. The train lights flickered, and for a brief moment she could not see as the car was plunged into darkness. She held her breath as her heart hammered against her ribs, threatening to jump out of her chest and escape. When the lights returned, her skin crawled with dread. Every passenger was now standing perfectly still, staring directly at her. She backed against the door, her mind spiraling. "Please," she whispered. She wanted to close her eyes. She couldn't, though. She was too afraid of what might happen if she looked away. Instead of words, she heard whispers. Soft at first, like the jostling and whooshing noises from the train in motion, but quickly growing louder. They filled the car, echoing unintelligible murmurs. The voices were angry, thick with accusation in her ears. What had she done to upset them? "Stop!" Sarah cried. She jammed her fingers into her ears, plugging them. It didn't help. The whispers grew louder and louder, judging her and taunting her and blaming her. For what? Suddenly, the subway jolted sharply to the right, knocking her off balance. Sarah fell. She felt herself falling for too long, waiting for the impact of the dirty car floor. She gasped sharply, jerking awake. Her head had slipped against the rail between her seat and the subway door. The train rocked as it slowed down, approaching her station. She heard the familiar subway voice announce, "This is Franklin Avenue. Transfer is available to the 2 and 3 trains." Sarah glanced around, frantic. Passengers chatted softly, scrolling through phones or listening to music. Normalcy surrounded her. Her heart still raced. She didn't trust it yet. But had it just been a dream? She took deep breaths, trying to will her panic to go down. Be calm. You are safe, she thought. Just exhausted and stressed out from work. She gathered her belongings, relieved to see her book on her lap, not scattered across the floor. As she stepped off of the train, her nose and lungs were assaulted by the belly, muggy platform air. The grimy realness of the familiar gross platform felt like it was bringing her back to reality. Her legs were a little shaky, but she was grateful to be moving, to be able to leave and put the strange nightmare behind her. Sarah made her way out of the station towards the stairs. She climbed up and out, feeling her phone vibrate. She pulled her phone out of her pocket squinting at the notifications. Someone texted her from an unknown number. She opened the message and read, "Wake up." Sarah froze, her pulse quickening again. Anxiety surged back, sharp and biting. Her fingers trembled slightly as she glanced back toward the departing subway. She saw them again, watching her. Through the windows, all of the passengers stood motionless, facing her. She felt the hairs on the back of her neck raise and waited until the train vanished into the tunnel and the people were out of view. Sarah ran up the remaining stairs, emerging onto the street, desperate for the cool, open air and clarity. She continued to run, pumping her legs as the sense of unease lingered. She glanced repeatedly at the people passing by her on the sidewalk, wondering if they were going to have that haunting, identical expression on their faces. She made it to her walk-up apartment, sprinting up 4 flights of narrow stairs, quickly unlocking the door and shoving herself inside. Sarah double-locked the door and pressed her forehead into the wood as she looked out of the peephole. What if they followed her home? She waited, forcing herself to breathe as quietly as possible to see if they would appear at the top of the stairs on her floor. "Come on," she said out loud to herself. "Get it together." She opened her phone again, rereading the unsettling message. "Wake up," she typed back cautiously. "Who is this?" The reply was instant. "You know who. You saw us." Her breath caught in her throat, fingers gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles whitened. Sarah tried to will the nightmare away, but the vacant faces, whispered accusations, and the locked subway doors all followed her. She stumbled to her window, looking down at the street below. Cars rushed past, their honking sounds reaching her window. New Yorkers moved briskly at their quick walking pace, looking like dozens of little ants with places to be. As she stared, her reflection in the window twisted subtly. For a split second, her own eyes stared back, wide and vacant, mirroring the subway passengers. Sarah gasped, jerking away from the glass. She collapsed heavily on her couch, pressing her shaking hands into the cushions to try and ground herself. "There's no way that was real," she told herself. Her vision was tunneling, blurred by exhaustion and fear. Her breathing came manually. In and out, she willed herself. In and out. In and out. In and the seeds of dominion. 1. I always knew the world was constructed on lies. Not minor falsehoods or innocent misunderstandings, but carefully cultivated fabrications designed to shape reality. From my earliest memories, even before my parents disappeared, I sensed that truth was not something freely given. It was deliberately hidden, erased, and rewritten. My parents were among the first to resist. They stood against the dominion, when resistance still felt possible, believing knowledge was a right worth risking everything to protect. They vanished when I was 6, quietly removed by the regime, their identities reduced to whispers and fading memories. Ronan and Elise Marek, old friends of my parents and former resistance fighters themselves, took me in. They taught me how to navigate the unseen currents beneath the surface, how to decode the hidden language of control, the dominion embedded in every broadcast and headline. They showed me the creeping corporate feudalism that had slowly replaced democracy as powerful corporations silently took ownership of entire districts, deciding who prospered and who disappeared. By 16, I was adept at uncovering secrets. I immersed myself in encrypted data streams and forgotten archives. Ronan and Elise warned me. Knowing too much was dangerous, but ignorance was deadly. The Dominion thrived because people feared the truth. They accepted convenience over freedom. My decision to become a journalist was calculated. It allowed me to move unnoticed, to gather information without drawing suspicion. Yet, deep down, I knew this was more than a career. It was a weapon against tyranny. Truth was powerful, but proof was lethal, too. You ever feel like you're chasing ghosts, Joran? I glanced up from my tablet, where Dominion data feeds ran endlessly, searching for cracks in their carefully constructed narratives. Devin Rains, my closest friend since our academy days, watched me from across the cafe table, worry shadowing his face. We chase ghosts because they're the only thing the Dominion fears, I replied evenly. Devin's discomfort was palpable, a subtle anxiety coloring every gesture. Recently, he'd changed. He'd grown cautious, hesitant. The war's been over for years, Devin said softly. Maybe they won because no one noticed until it was too late. Now, all we're doing is marking ourselves as targets. His words unsettled me, not for their truth, but because they were spoken from fear. Devin's courage had once matched mine, his idealism unwavering. Something had shifted. What's changed, Devin? I leaned forward, lowering my voice instinctively. Surveillance was everywhere, hidden in plain sight. He hesitated, eyes flicking nervously to the security camera mounted near the ceiling. There's a new list, he whispered. It's not for criminals or dissidents. It's for people who question too much. It's called the Inquiry List. I understood immediately. A blacklist was straightforward. Immediate punishment or exile. The Inquiry List was something darker, insidious. It marked you for isolation, slow erosion, and eventual disappearance. You're on it, I stated flatly, watching him closely. He nodded slowly. We both are. A silent understanding passed between us. Devin was frightened, and fear made people dangerous. Still, I wasn't about to stop. Not now, when the stakes had finally become clear. 3. Devon disappeared within days. His presence simply ceased. No messages, no records, no traces. Just silence. I pursued answers with relentless determination, hacking into secured archives, whispering in underground circles, piecing together fragments of his fate. Each revelation deepened my dread. The Dominion protocol wasn't coming. It had arrived. Our world was now governed by rigid conformity, loyalty measured in unquestioning obedience. Citizens weren't people. They were assets, evaluated for their utility, discarded when inconvenient. I stared numbly at the evidence on my tablet. Democracy hadn't merely been undermined, it had been methodically dismantled. Devon wasn't dead, not physically. He had been absorbed, transformed into something compliant and controlled. 4. I knew when they would come. Patterns were easy to spot if you paid attention. Increased drone patrols, subtle shifts in daily broadcasts, neighbors becoming suddenly distant. It was all carefully staged. When the knock finally came, I was already on the move. Out through the fire escape, down silent alleyways, navigating shadows with practiced ease. My heart pounded, but my breathing remained steady. Panic was a luxury I couldn't afford. The train station loomed ahead, my gateway to the industrial underground. Passengers waited silently, their faces blank, eyes fixed firmly forward. I slipped onto the platform just as Dominion enforcers emerged, their armored presence imposing and inevitable. Joran Vale, the voice sent a chill down my spine. Not the enforcer's voice, but Devon's. I turned slowly, dread twisting inside me. Devon stood among them, dressed in Dominion black, his eyes hollow and distant. I recognized the vacancy instantly. The Dominion had taken not only his freedom, but his spirit. "Come quietly," he intoned, emotionless. "You gave in," I accused bitterly. "They made you afraid, and you surrendered." "I adapted," he replied mechanically. "No," I said sharply. "Adaptation isn't compliance." His gaze faltered, something brief and vulnerable flickering behind those empty eyes. Devon reached toward me, an automated reflex of the Dominion's control. The train doors hissed open beside me, a brief window of opportunity. Devon lunged, grabbing my shoulder. Instinct took over. I drove my elbow hard into his ribs, feeling him recoil sharply, gasping for breath. His grip loosened, and I wrenched free, leaping onto the train just as the doors snapped shut behind me. Through the window, Devon stared helplessly, now a shadow fading into the distance. Regret etched his features briefly before the darkness reclaimed him. The train surged forward, carrying me into uncertainty, but also toward freedom. 5. As the city lights blurred into a mosaic of neon and shadow, I steadied my breathing. The train hummed rhythmically beneath my feet, a steady reassurance that, for now, I was still free. Passengers around me stared blankly ahead, eyes purposely unfocused, trained to remain ignorant of anything that might threaten their carefully curated peace. But I was awake. The Dominion thrived on the apathy of the masses, believing control was absolute because compliance was easy. Yet beneath that facade lay a deep-seated fear of truth, a fragile illusion ready to shatter. I had lost Devon, just as I'd lost my parents. Each loss carved itself into my being. Painful reminders that truth always came at a cost. But their sacrifices were not in vain. They'd ignited a flame in me, nurtured by Ronan and Elise, a flame of resistance, a commitment to remember, to speak, and to expose the lies. The Dominion underestimated the strength of those who remembered, those who chose truth over comfort. They believed themselves untouchable, their rule eternal. But power built upon lies was fundamentally unstable, vulnerable to those willing to risk everything for the truth. As the train raced deeper into the industrial outskirts, darkness settled around me, punctuated only by flickering lights and distant shadows. I pressed my forehead gently against the cold window, eyes scanning the landscape rushing past. Factories loomed on the horizon, silent giants standing guard over secrets yet undiscovered. My heart steadied, determination hardening like tempered steel. They might hunt me, silence me, or erase my name from history, but they couldn't erase the truth. Not while people like me still breathed. The Dominion hadn't won, not yet, on a parallel track, unnoticed. Another train moved quietly through the shadows. Inside, illuminated by the pale glow of a screen, a figure stared intently at my image, captured by surveillance cameras. Eyes narrowed thoughtfully, studying every detail of my escape, every gesture, every defiance. From the tinted window of his train car, Devon watched the darkness unfold, shadows reflecting in his eyes no longer hollow, but haunted by the flicker of something forgotten. He whispered softly to himself, a truth long buried, but impossible to erase. The truth is not a ghost, it is a weapon. And outside, the city faded slowly into darkness. Black and white, the boardroom. 32 students awake in a dark room. The lights flash on. 32 fearful high school students scan their surroundings. They're in a square room. The walls are lovely nature murals. The floor is a large, square black and white checkerboard. And they're in costumes. 16 are black and 16 white. Esther starts the confused students' conversation. "Oh, my lord, where are we?" Barney, the school's head nerd, is dressed in black leather and a crown. How did I got here? Johnny, the high school star quarterback, is dressed in white leather and a king's crown. We, nerd. How did we all get here? Susie, head cheerleader, adorned in a dazzling black sequined dress and crown, clings to Johnny. We were all at Dr. Gilbert's party. Jerry. Right. I remember we all toasted the good doctor's birthday. Jill? Yes, I can't recall much after that. Billy Joe. The punch. I bet the punch was spiked. Sally. How did I get dressed in this? Mark and Ken are examining the walls, looking for an exit, only to find 2 bathroom door. Mayview Police Deputy. The FBI Child Abduction Unit arrives at the Mayview City Police Department. Captain Montaigne. I appreciate your rapid response. Agent Joseph Klein. What have you got, Captain? There was a party at a Mayview High School mathematician's house on Friday night that the missing teens seem to have attended. Sergeant Billings. Sir, they're being live streamed. Agent Klein makes a call. Agent Newton, I need your unit to find this channel's origin. I just linked to you. Live chess. A placard on the wall reads, Welcome to live chess. 1. This is a standard 12-hour game of chess. 2. Your costume denotes your position and side. 3. Your kings are Johnny and Barney, both well-ranked players. 4. Breaks are 10 minutes each hour. The teens are quiet momentarily as they read, then break into a confusing garble of voices until Ben, a well-known school bully, yells, Shut up, all of you. They do. He continues, Who the hell you think you are? I will knock your teeth out. A loud crack sounds out. Ben collapses and slides down a wall onto the floor. Blood oozes from his mouth. Screams fill the room. A door opens, and in walks another student, Henry. A masked man drags Ben back inside the door, then closes it. Henry, what the hell is going on? Overhead, a voice breaks in. I'm the director and judge. I don't tolerate dissidents. Now that's settled, let's begin, shall we? Take your positions. White on the wall's time clock side. The frightened, crying teens start moving into position. Sally crying and shaking. I don't know where to go. King Barney. Over there, in the second row, with Susie, Jill, Mary, Gary, Ken, and Mike. You're all pawns. Voice. Well done. The clock will tick down from 12 hours for each team. It starts and stops with each move. The winning team lives, or shall I say, those left standing will live. Kimmy, the white king-side light-squared bishop, LSB, cries out, What does he mean? Voice. The game is one of death, not of capturing players, resulting in another wave of mass hysteria. White King Johnny. What the hell? Voice. Let the game begin. King Johnny, make your move. A dual digital timer on the wall starts counting down. W. 11.59. B. opening. Johnny, the HS quarterback, confused and shaking, instantly decides pawn to e4. Voice. Johnny, they're more than pawns. They're your classmates. They're living people, at least for the moment. Brings another burst of loud conversing, screams, and crying. Mary runs, screaming, "I can't do this!" A loud crack echoes throughout the room. Mary halts, drops to the ground, and cringes down into a fetal position. Voice. "Mary, that was a warning. Get back, now." She doesn't move. "I said, now, Mary." Another crack erupts, and the wall splinters beside her head. Mary screams, then runs back to her square. Johnny, G, Gary, move to the E4 square. Gary, W, where's that? Johnny, 2 squares in front of you. The white one. Gary steps up to the center of the board. Barney, C5. Elizabeth, move up 2 squares. She quickly responds. That's right, the dark square. Voice. Very good. See how easy it is to play and obey. Johnny, you're up. Johnny, knight to F3. Henry, do you play? Henry, yes. Susie, Sally, excuse me, please. And he moves up 2 and over 1 square, as knights do. Barney, knight to C6. Sarah, move behind Elizabeth on the white square. Johnny, Billy, you're our light squared bishop. Step in front of me to E2. BE2. Strategy. Barney, may I ask a question? Voice. Of course. Your clock is ticking. Barney. If we capture a piece, what happens to the player? Voice. Again. It's not a capture game. It is a game of life and death. Barney. The person dies? Voice. I think you know the answer. Black King Barney. Barney. What happens if there is a checkmate without any captures? Voice. The winning team walks away. The losing team. Well, they don't. Barney. Can we huddle? Voice. 2 heads are better than 1. Barney. Everyone who plays chess, raise your hand. The black team's bishops, Tamer and Samuel, the knights, Michael and Sarah, and 1 rook, Matthew, raise their hands along with 3 pawns, Eve, Miriam, and Luke. Barney. Okay, let's huddle and discuss our next move. No one moves. Voice. You can converse during your move. The bishops and knights slowly and hesitantly walk over to Barney. Barney. How you doing? Tamar, tears flowing. Scared shitless, of course. The others nod in agreement. Barney. I didn't want to talk about the move. I know the best move with Johnny's Sicilian defense. I want to discuss strategy. If we capture a person, Samuel, they will be shot. Sarah, who is this psychopath? Luke, his voice is masked and he knows us. Michael, a teacher? Barney, I think so, but our absence must have the FBI involved. So, if we can draw out the game with no captures, Tamar, kill this sick we'll murder them. Barney, right, so let's make moves to prolong the game. Sarah? Sounds like a good plan. The others nod in agreement. Barney? Okay, good. Michael? Let's play D6. It's a good counter to the Sicilian, and no chance for a kill. Barney? My thought as well. The teens shake in agreement. Billy Joe? Johnny is my boyfriend and aggressive in football and chess. He's good and will go for the win. Sarah? No, he won't. Billy Joe? What makes you think that? Sarah? You! You're on our side. You die if he wins. The players return to their positions. Barney, D6. Miriam, move up one step. W23.55.09. B23.50.03. Johnny. Rose, you're our king's knight. Move in front of Jill. Barney, knight to F6 for you, Michael. Michael, got it. Samuel, you're moving so fast. Barney, it's just the opening. We can slow down during the mid-game. That's expected. Bishop Samuel. Okay, that makes sense. He may get mad if look to be stalling. Johnny, let's castle. Jill, move beside me, and I'll move to the inside beside you. Barney, shall we fianchetto kingside? Tamar, yes, good call. Black king. Barney, okay, Daniel, step up one square to G6. Next, light squared Bishop Billy will move behind you to G7. And then we will castle. Johnny, Mary, step up one to back up Gary. D3. Blacks, Bishop Daniel slides over to G7. White King Johnny. We're still opening. Our stance in martial arts terms. Bishop Kimmy, slide in front of Bishop Billy. Black King Barney and Rook Matthew switch sides to castle. FBI, Captain Montaigne. It has been 24 hours since 34 high school students were abducted. Dr. Gilbert's neighbors have only revealed that he had a large cargo truck that was heard leaving his residence in the early morning hours after the party, then disappeared. Agent Klein, Dr. Gilbert is a millionaire who does not need to work. He withdrew vast amounts of cash over the last few years and spent his weekends away. Where to? We are seeking to ascertain, along with tracing the video feed. We see the students are all alive, except one. Live chess has gone viral. We are hesitant to shut it down, as he may retaliate against the kids. Officer Dave. Yes, he shot one, and Celia is missing. Agent Klein. Perhaps not. Video analysis seems to indicate a scam, a fake death, like in the movies. He has a degree in mathematics and is a psychologist. Officer Gentry, a sick one. He is tormenting them. Agent Klein. Chess has 32 pieces, 16 per side. If you promote a pawn to the other side, you get a piece of your choice. Celia may be in waiting as the extra queen if one side promotes a pawn. Agent. Obviously. Our best is to track his video feed. He is bouncing off dark web torrent sites worldwide. He is good. Our cybercrime unit is on it. We will keep you updated. Captain Montaigne. We will continue our local search for sites able to house a 50 by 50 foot room and use infrared heat sensing, although they may be underground. What's new with the West search progress, Kelly? Mid-game, Johnny. Okay, now we're in the mid-game, and we're at an advantage to strike in the middle. But I don't want anyone else to die. So let's just make a non-confrontational move. Queen Esther. Barney and I are dating. He is brilliant, uses his mind, and despises violence. We should just hop around. I can step over one and back up Bishop Kimmy, Rose. That looks aggressive, forcing a dark bishop trade, but we don't have to go through with it, Johnny. Perfect. Queen Esther, step over to QC1, Barney. Let's huddle. Okay, my friends. It looks as they want to force a bishop trade and end up with their Q in front of me, Billy Joe. Don't take any chances with Johnny. He will save himself first. He will pick his team and friends over me. Barney. Okay, we can avoid a trade. Matthew. How? Barney. Rook Matthew. Step to the side. 1 for rook to e8. King Johnny. Good move by them. They don't want a trade or fight. The clock reads W23 Uzo Bir Suinti. Voice. Break time. A wall opens, revealing a large table with a feast of food and drinks. The bathroom doors pop open. One is labeled guys and the other gals. Break time. The young women gather. Johnny runs to Billy Joe, and they hug, as do other couples. Billy Joe. Oh, Johnny, I'm so scared. Johnny. We all are, Billy Joe. We all are. Barney. I'm famished. He and Esther walk to the snack table. Esther. I need to pee. Be right back. The Black King walks up to the Black King. Johnny greets him with, "What's up, nerd?" Barney. We need to work together and figure this out. Johnny. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. What do you have in mind? He takes the last bite of a hot dog. Barney. If we make a capture, the person dies. Johnny. Right. So, we need to move around. Keep the game going. Barney. That's logical, but I'm sure he thought of that. Johnny. All we can do is try. Barney. Perhaps the cops will find us. Johnny. The FBI is hunting for us. Barney. Right. So let us keep the game going till time runs out. Johnny. Okay. We need not to let any side run out their clock. Esther. How do we do that? Billy Joe. Make our moves on 10-minute intervals. Johnny. Perfect. Barney. That's 6 moves per hour times 24 hours, which comes out to 120 moves each. Esther. Let's make them 15 minutes. Barney. I agree. That way we maximize the game length. Esther. Watch the clock and pray the FBI finds us. Upstairs, Dr. Gilbert smiles. Breaks over. Back to your positions. King Johnny, your move. Johnny. Hey, Barney. Barney. Yeah, Johnny. I'm really sorry. And I know I can speak for my football team. I'm truly sorry for all the nerd harassment we've given you and your friends over the years, Barney. Ah, heck. Water under the bridge, Johnny. Let's just get through this and let bygones be bygones. The two smile and walk to their sides of the board, both holding back tears to move to lose scenario. The black and white kings and their teams continue the game, making move after move, without players attacking other players. After the 90th move, and with only a few hours left, Dr. Gilbert, whose name was still unknown to the students and video stream audience, finally spoke, voice. Well, you all have been having fun, right? I'm not stupid, you know. I have been building and planning this game for years. Do you all realize that if this game ends in a draw or stalemate, in other words, when the clock runs out and no kills have been made, do you realize both teams lose? Do you understand what happens to the losers? Barney, no one goes home? Voice, correct. Johnny, what happens if one person is sacrificed? Voice, the team losing the piece loses. If there's a recapture, piece value decides. Break time, it's pizza. W01 to 4506, B1 4609. The exhausted teens had stopped crying many long hours ago. Their mood devolved into hopelessness. Most feel numb. Their conversation was replaced with inward personal reflection. Life before this horrid weekend. Football game fun and laughs. Moments with their friends, their loves, and their families. Upon this new revelation, a lose-lose scenario where at least half will die, the crying and severe depression returned as their end was near. The physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted teens collapse on the checkered floor and devour 16 large pizzas. Billy Joe, so much for our stalemate plan. We're screwed. Now what are we going to do? Barney, someone needs to be sacrificed for the rest of us? Esther, no, it's not that simple. Henry, she's right. One sacrifice means the losing team. All of them don't make it home. Billy Joe, Lordy, what are we going to do? Johnny, flip a coin. The loser takes a hit. It doesn't matter who dies first, as all 16 will be sacrificed. Barney flips. Johnny guesses wrong. Henry, I'll do it. Rose is in a position to take me. FBI, Captain. We just got a call from Jerry's Pizza in Littleford. Somebody just picked up an order of 16 pizzas. Jerry said that was highly unusual. We're running the license plate run now. Agent Klein, get the SWAT team in the chopper. Sergeant Newton, Captain, we have an address. End game. W00010, B00010. Billy Joe. Time to make the call, Barney. Barney, I can't. Billy Joe. Tears in her eyes. I know. It is either half of us or all of us. Barney. Rose, walk over to Henry's Square. Rose, tears flowing. No, I won't be able to live with myself. Billy Joe. None of us will. Rose, None of us, Barney, angered, will all forever be haunted. Night Rose slowly moves up 2 squares over one and steps into Henry's square. Oh, Henry, I'm so sorry. Henry. Rose, I volunteered. You're not to blame. Voice. Barney, you're up. Barney. What do you mean? Voice. It's time to slay. Barney. So, go ahead. Live with your cruelty. Voice. Oh, not I, your kingship. Barney. What do you mean? Voice. You as king chose. You as king follow through. Barney. I will not murder. Voice. You may have Rose perform the deed. Barney. I will not. Voice. Do you choose a draw? Barney. Help. Everyone. What do I do? Voice. Tick, tick, tick. Barney. Let's vote. A team vote. Voice. Ah, a king chooses democracy. How noble. Barney. Those in favor of a draw walk to the other team. Those who want me to murder Henry and everyone on their side dies remain here. The room, filled with stunned, angered, and crying teens, suddenly turns into a loud, confusing uproar. Miriam breaks the hysteria, yelling out, "Quiet, everyone, please." The room quiets. Miriam, well known for her environmental protests, continues, "I say, all of us. Personally, I could not live with myself, knowing I chose to be part of a murder, to murder any of you. I suggest we all join hands and refuse to put up with this madman's sick game any longer." Gary, "No way. We don't all have to die, only half." Sally takes Gary in her arms and hugs him. He struggles and then collapses, crying. Quiet mumbling now fills the room. Matthew takes Miriam's hand into his, followed by Rose, until finally 32 teens sit in the middle of a sizable black and white game board. Some have been friends since early childhood, some lovers, some enemies, for various reasons that seem silly now. 32 colored teens, white, yellow, red, black, and brown, sit quietly, looking around at their peers' multi-ethnic faces. They are emotionally spent, feeling their common humanity and finding comfort in each other. Dr. Gilbert sits upstairs, smiling. Millions worldwide are fixed on their screens, devices streaming Live Chess, awaiting the endgame finale. Breaking news: 34 students who recently went missing were found this morning after millions worldwide watched in horror. Live Chess, a divisive game attempting to pit Mayview High School students against each other. The teens, previously at odds with each other, joined forces to devise various strategies. They refused the cruel psychopath's rules. Dr. Gilbert conducted what he termed a psychological experiment, and a success beyond his pre-game hypothesis of teen behavior. He remains at large. All the students were found alive. 1 year later, 32 students awake in a dark room. Cornflower blues. It always came at night. That night was no different in that respect. I had heard it lumbering around outside as the sun disappeared from the sky, the sound of scraping metal as it circled the house. I had always fought the urge to look directly at it, instead only catching glimpses of it in the shadows. If I focused, I could shuffle it to the back of my mind like a deck of cards. But those lonely hours, when night approached and my mind was no longer engaged by work or meaningless check-ins with the few friends I managed to keep, were the hardest. At first, the check-ins came daily, then weekly, then monthly, then whenever they had a free second to pity me via text. "Hey girl, you doing okay? Do you need anything?" I don't think any of them would have known what to do had I answered yes. I couldn't blame them though. Life goes on. For some people, at least. But anyway, the difference in this particular night was that I had decided to allow my mind to go to that place. No shuffling this time. Instead, accepting the cards that were dealt. Sometime after my 5th or 6th glass of Pinot Noir, I turned my phone off, placed it on the end table next to a stack of unpaid bills, pushed the dirty clothes to one end of the couch, and sank into the other end. Alone. It had been 12 months to the day since I lost my sweet boy with the cornflower blue eyes. Cornflower Connie, as I called him. Parents should never have to bury their children. Todd was completely shattered. He left me this past June. I had dropped to a rail-thin 99 pounds, and he said he couldn't stand to see me hurt any longer. I tried everything: counseling, group, rehabilitation programs, but everyone grieves differently. I guess Todd had to grieve alone. At some point, I nodded off, waking only to an unsettling silence, quickly realizing the noise was gone. I wiped the drool from my chin, licked my cracked lips, and decided to check it out. With my body bladed to the window, I pulled the curtain to the side and saw it standing under the dim porch light. The back of my neck tingled, and my heart thumped in my chest, acting like my body's panic alarm. I would normally just do a quick look. Instead, for the first time, I stayed. I studied it. Its skin was the color of burnt charcoal, and its back curved like a question mark. It shifted under the light, revealing a Grinch-like face that scrunched even more as it smiled at me, like a mischievous feline. But there, above the unnerving grin, I saw them, those familiar eyes. My cornflower Connie had come home. All I had to do was focus on those eyes. "Don't you want to be with me again, Mommy? Let me in, and you can hold me again, just like you used to." What was I supposed to do? Of course, I wanted to be with him again. It would surely be better than telling myself that the random white blob in the sky actually resembled a heart. A message from my Connie. I love you too. Yeah, you can convince yourself of almost anything if you believe it enough, and if you're sad enough, just like the cardinal that occasionally lands on my fence. Good morning, Connie. Thanks for the visit. I let him in. His long, rubbery fingers took me by the arm, led me upstairs, never breaking his gaze. Where are we going? I asked, barely a whisper, in what seemed like the first words I had spoken in days. To my room, Mommy. The door creaked open, and the lights came on, bringing the room back to life. I have no idea if I flipped the switch or not. It felt like I had floated up the staircase. The room was just as he left it. COONRD, colorfully stenciled on the blue wall above his big boy twin bed. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sheets and comforter still ruffled from that night, a little over a year ago, when he stumbled into our room just before midnight. Mommy, my chest feels weird, he moaned. After a 104.1 fever, we rushed him to the hospital. My cornflower Connie would never come home again. His fingers rolled up my sleeve and led me to the bed. I pressed his Michelangelo stuffed animal to my face, inhaling deeply, hoping it still held Connie's scent. It didn't. The tears fell, and his grip tightened on my arm, leading me into the bed. He never let go of my arm. Lay with me, Mommy. I climbed in, pulled the covers to my stomach, and rested my head on Connie's pillow. I miss you so much, baby, I yelled through tears, pounding my one free fist on the mattress. I'm here if you keep looking in my eyes. Just then, his eyes flickered, and it, as if I was watching a projection screen. I watched as we took in the afternoon show of the new Spider-Man movie last year. Connie's lap littered with buttery popcorn that missed his mouth, his icy stained lips framing his checkered smile. A flicker, a summer afternoon drive around the neighborhood, blasting random 90s songs. He loved the songs that I grew up on. We would do our absolute worst to sing along. Keep looking at my eyes, Mommy. Just a little bit more, until you can hold me again. His grip tightened some more. Another flicker, a lazy Sunday. Me sprawled out on the couch, my Connie's little body slowly rising and falling with my breathing as he naps on my chest. Another second, and I'm yours again. How could I say no? I did what he asked, just a little longer. The avalanche of warmth I felt was euphoric, as if my insides were swaddled in a heated blanket. It was the first semblance of comfort and peace that I hadn't felt since he was actually here with me. I did what he asked. Then I waited. That was 2 days ago, and I don't see my cornflower Connie anywhere. The comfort I had felt the other day dissipated in an instant. I've been patiently waiting, but now I wonder, did it lie? It's so dark here. Colourless Heart. Set your story in a world that has lost all color. Colourless Heart by Lucy Apadu. Marie roused from sleep in the double bed inside the Paris Hilton Hotel. She sank into the comfort of the silky sheets and the fresh fabric smell. A smile splashed across her face, unable to open her eyes just yet. Freedom at last. Just her. No one else. No jumping on eggshells. Not being caught off guard. No secrets. No lies. Just Marie. No other soul in this room. Away from him. But it wasn't only about liberation. It was about protection. Keeping her loved ones safe. She had to keep them alive. And this was the only way. Freedom for herself, but separation from her loved ones. But that one person foremost in her brain. Salvatore. Marie had recently attended a gun range and learned how to fire a gun, just in case. She never knew when she might need to use it. It was about protection. The alarm on her mobile phone jerked her fully awake. A yawn filtered through as she slowly opened her eyes and spotted her phone on the dull black bedside table that had been brown yesterday. The white cushions that had been hues of purple. The black curtains that had been taupe. The ash-black carpet beneath the bed that had been gray. And the black sky through a gap in the window curtain that had been blue. No more blue skies. No more shades other than black and white. The world had lost its color. Marie's breath quickened as her heart palpitated. She rose from bed and rubbed her eyes hard. It had to be her eyes. Had she suddenly become colorblind? Where were all the bright, vibrant colors when it was what she needed? She shut, then opened her eyes, but nothing changed. Her world was drab, colorless, soulless. Her shoulders slumped over, her head bowed. A slow chill ran up and down her spine. Curiosity peaked. Her skin reddened and turned hot. She had no choice but to be here in this colorless world. What had happened overnight to turn her entire world into a shroud of darkness with only black and white in its midst?
10.
Marie wandered outside the hotel, lost in a world where she knew no one. She had left Melbourne to make a fresh start in Paris, so nobody would find her. So he couldn't find her. She couldn't believe having woken up in a with shades of gray and black blocking her view of natural color, light, and even shades of gray. A bench with a view of the River Seine looked inviting as she made her way over, put her bag down, and stared at the calm ripples with a view of the majestic Eiffel Tower. Sailing boats anchored in the water, bunched up trees, and riders swinging their arms inside canoes. The wind scraped her face in the winter. Nothing but black and white, Marie flashed back to her former life, back home where she worked as an interior designer, married to a man she didn't love, and friends who would most likely understand her escape. Yesterday, her world was dark, but today, after she awoke, it became darker, grittier, and scarier. Did this lack of color mean something? Could she no longer design with color to refresh old homes or design new ones if she wanted to start over in France? She had not rung anyone except her best friend Helena about her sudden escape for their own protection. With a call from a burner phone, she announced her safe arrival. "Do you have color? Or has the world changed?" Helena replied. "What are you talking about? The things in the world. They're in black and white, Helena. I woke up this morning and nothing was in color. No blues, browns, pinks, purple, yellows, or any color. All gone. Is Melbourne the same? Don't be silly, Marie. We still have color. Have you become colorblind? Had your eyes checked? You couldn't have become colorblind in an instant. Go get them tested. Oh, and please stay safe. I don't know when I'll call you next. You know how he is. He could be tracking this conversation, even if it's on a burner phone. I love you, Marie. And I'm glad you're safe now. One day, we'll be together again." Marie fought back tears after ending the call. She would miss her loved ones, but she still didn't get what was going on. Was she the crazy one? Or did only Paris lose its color? With a sigh, Marie rose and made her way back to the hotel, knowing she'd have to find herself permanent residence. As she crossed the wide road, a towering man brushed her shoulder. "Oh, sorry." He locked eyes with her and walked ahead of her on the other side of the road. His broad shoulders and black eyes made her shudder, stopping in his tracks. "I have a message to give you." She angled her head. "Who are you?" "Here, take this," he said. She retrieved the note. He watched her. Who the hell was this guy? And why was he making her nervous? "Who are you?" "I'm just the messenger, lady. Read the note." "Who sent you?" He inched his way closer. Benny did. "Now read the note." "No, not again." He found her. Would this bastard ever leave her alone? With a shuddering breath, she unfolded the note, her hands shaking and the back of her neck sweating. Bits of her skin prickled. What was this? She had to be dreaming as she read the note. Her vision blurred, as if the words weren't real. The threat wasn't real. "Meet me in front of the Louvre tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp, or someone you love dies." The same old threats again. How did he find me? The man bared his crooked teeth with a smile. He swaggered off into the distance. It wasn't over. It never would be. The next morning, Marie paced her steps towards the Louvre, a queue that was a mile long. She wondered if anyone would ever reach the entrance to the museum. The glass panels of the building distracted her from the enemy she was about to meet. Each step drew her closer to the devil. When would it end? Her breath hitched as she stepped on uneven ground. Razor-sharp pain cutting into her lower back as she fought the gust of frozen wind. She had to free herself. But how? He would always find her, threaten her, obsess over her, and abuse her. She'd been abused for 3 torturous years. Storm clouds brewed when Marie drew closer to the swarms of people. It was almost 9 o'clock, and passers-by stared at her as if she as an alien. Was it obvious she was heading towards her death chamber, to her dreaded foe? A cold caress at the back of her neck made her freeze in her spot. She turned. It was him. Benny. In all his wealthy glamour, the bastard wore a black tie, black buttoned-up suit jacket over a black cashmere jumper with black pleated pants over Italian leather shoes. He smelled rich. "Follow me," he said, as he prodded her towards an unknown destination. They walked in silence as his intermittent glares unnerved her. The squeeze of his arm draped through hers, leaving bruises, but she said nothing. His pinch at the back of her neck made her flinch, but she said nothing. The push and pull of her hair strands made her want to cry out, but she didn't. Hidden pain to display her fake strength. When finally, she sat down outside the cafe with its outdoor setting, he ordered hot drinks and croissants. No one does what you did and gets away with it. She swallowed, her lip trembling as she stared past him. "Please don't hurt him," he chuckled and threw his head back, his stained white teeth prominent. Flicking a cigarette over an ashtray, he tilted his head. "You're lucky I love you, Marie. If I didn't love you, you'd be dead by now. But you ever try something like this again, and I won't hesitate to slash your throat, feed your decrepit body to the fish in the Seine River. Got that?" She nodded, a black spot clouding her vision. Puffs of smoke floated towards her and made her cough. Not that he cared. He was a narcissist. He retrieved his phone. "Watch this. No, I mean business, Marie. I don't blow damn smoke up my arse." She gripped the phone and saw him, tied up to a chair, gagged, beaten, tortured. 2 black eyes, bruising across his cheek, haggard, frail, head hanging down low, as if giving up. "No, don't give up, my love. Never give up." A gasp of air grounded her. Rattling teeth must have made her look scared in front of him. "Is he all right?" he scoffed. "That depends on you. You put one foot wrong. Leave me again, and he dies. Only when we're safely back home, he'll be released. The waiter returned with the croissants and hot coffees. Sorry about the croissants. They're a little overcooked, but these are more their natural yellow. Marie winced. But those croissants are black, not yellow. He waved a hand. Don't mind her. She's the constant joker. But no worries. We'll have them as they are. The waiter nodded. Black, you say? Benny glared. Leave us. The waiter walked off with a curious gaze. He turned to her. What is wrong with you? Can't you see the color of the food? How could he not see what she was seeing? What was wrong with her? No, everything is black and white. I don't see color anymore. He laughed. Are you telling me you don't? You see the brown coffees, the blue ashtray, the beige tablecloth, my red tie, my dashing blue eyes. Her heart missed a beat as she gritted her teeth. No, I lost sight of color this morning. I woke up like this. Everything is black and white. Interesting, he said. Marie looked past him and spotted the man she'd seen earlier. The one who had given her the note. He was standing by a lamppost, sculling a bottle of beer. Why was he around? He must have been Benny's bodyguard, in case she made a run for it. Marie and Benny stepped inside her hotel room. He pushed her towards the wardrobe. Start packing. Our flight leaves in a few hours. Okay then. She pushed aside her floating tears and steeled herself by pulling out her suitcase from underneath the bed, unzipping it. As if in a surreal world, she pulled clothing off hangers and threw them into the suitcase. She was going back to her prison, away from the love of her life. If only she had been stronger a few years ago, when he had framed her ex-boyfriend, Salvatore, for murder, just so he could be free from prison. She was forced to marry him. Marriage to Benny in exchange for Salvatore's freedom. She had never explained why she'd broken up with him. Had to convince Salvatore she no longer loved him. It had cut her insides, but she had to keep him safe. Salvatore had not given up on her and found ways for them to meet secretly. But Benny always found out about their secret rendezvous. He had put plans in place, made the worst things happen. Benny involved in Salvatore crashing his car, ruining his reputation in business, injuring his friend with a beating by his henchmen, and almost killing him at least twice. Now Salvatore was threatened with death. What more could the creep do? I'm having a shower, he said. She sat on the bed. How could she go back with him? But she had no choice when Salvatore would die if she didn't. Benny's phone lay on the bedside table. Curious, she picked it up and found his recording. Salvatore was still tied to the chair, still tortured and broken. But wait, something was weird about this video. The actions were the same. His movements repeated in a cycle, as if it was on a loop. This wasn't her true love live. This was a fake video. It had to be. Could Salvatore have arranged this? Outsmarted Benny again? She smiled to herself. Now she had a chance to do something. Fight him. Hurt him. But no, she wasn't a violent person and had morals. Nothing like Benny. What could she do? Run away again? But Benny might pursue Salvatore and never stop. He would never stop finding her until his own death. She knew that. So what could she do? She could never reason with a crazy person. A knock on the door made her jolt in her spot. It could be anyone. Her heart racing, she slowly opened the door and flinched when the man from earlier pushed past her. "Where's Benny? What are you doing here?" the man whispered in her ear. "Listen, Salvatore will set you free. Get out of here," she swallowed, her vision blurring. What? The back of her neck sweated as one ear listened in on Benny in the shower. "No time to talk. Leave. Now. We'll take care of this." She was right. It was a fake recording. He'd escaped. Where is he? The man swung the gun in his hand, scanning past her. "He's closer than you think. Go now." Her heart soared, and a spot of color flashed in her vision. But only fleetingly. It turned black and white again. What in hell is going on here? Benny grasped something from his back pocket. "Why are you here?" The man shrugged until reaching his side pocket and shooting towards Benny, who shifted to the side, the bullet grazing his cheek. But Benny pulled out his own gun and took aim. The gun hit the man square in the chest. He fell back against the door with a thud. Marie quaked. It was over. No love, no freedom. "You will never leave me. Never, Marie. Get that. Nobody will ever take you away from me. Grab your things. Hurry up." He shifted the strange man's body to the bathroom, blood pouring out of him like a tap. When he returned, Benny shoved her aside and flung the remainder of her clothes into the suitcase. "Now zip it up and let's leave pronto." He sat on the sofa and scrolled through his phone. A call to one of his stupid thugs. Goosebumps swarmed like insects over her arms as a dull ache at the back of her neck made her queasy. This had to stop. Slowly zipping up the baggage. A shuffling sound underneath the bed made her think she was hearing things. But no. She spotted a shoe protruding from the corner as someone glided further to the edge near the bedside table. Salvatore appeared and placed a finger across his lips, hefting a gun. She moved towards Benny, pulled the suitcase off the bed, and retrieved her bag. "I'm ready." Salvatore flung himself in the open and approached Benny with an aim of his gun. "Put your hands up. Now." Benny flinched. "You have a death wish, don't you? You might have got away from my men, but you'll never win this war. I will fight you to the death, Benny. I don't care if I die, so long as Marie goes free. Free from your dungeon. Free from your psychopathic world. You loser. He faced Marie. Go now. I'll take care of this. She shook her head. We fight with our hands. Fight to the death. Benny scoffed. Fine with me. He shoved his pistol inside his back pocket and took a fighting stance while Salvatore did the same. No, please, Salvatore. Just go. I can't be with you. Benny's my husband. I'm going back to Melbourne with him. Please, leave. No, Marie, enough is enough. Benny threw the first punch, then another and another, until he went down. He gouged one of Salvatore's eyes and flung his head hard against the carpet. Marie moved. No, Benny, stop. I'll come with you. Please stop. Benny softened, giving Salvatore the chance to pound into Benny with a blow to the kidney, and then a swift kick in the leg. Lamps overturned, magazines tumbled in the air, and the coffee table shifted. Benny kicked him on the side of his abdomen, and he keeled over. She had to do something. But what? Benny reached for something in his pants pocket. A flick knife. No. He was going to break the rules. Not on her watch. Salvatore attempted to rise when Benny stepped forward. A smirk plastered over his face. He wandered over to him when the knife swung in the air. Marie reached for his back pocket, pulled out the gun, and aimed. Stop, or I'll shoot, he scoffed. You don't have the guts. Don't even know guns. Benny ignored her, about to stab Salvatore in the throat. Marie pulled the trigger and shot him twice in the stomach. The knife fell, and he dropped like a sack of potatoes. Blood seeped onto the carpet, and she watched and waited for the life force to draw out of him. 3 years of hell. 3 years of watching over her shoulder. 3 years of fearing the lives of her loved ones. Walking quietly on eggshells. Those days were over as the rotten apple drew his last breath. Salvatore shuffled towards her and hugged her. I love you, Marie. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from him. You've always protected me. She beamed. I love you too, Salvatore. She savored the gentle caress of her lover's strong arms around her waist. Her eyes shifted, her surroundings vibrating with color. Nor more colorless world. So today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.